A lot of people locally didn't even think of, we have an election coming up Tuesday.
Right, Tuesday. And it's one of those elections that's right in the middle of nowhere that you kind of forget about. And you know what, back last year when we were doing the big presidential thing, this came up at one of the big, what do you call them when everybody gets together and they figure out the vote? Caucuses. You know, there was a proposal to bring all of the elections together on the same day so that everybody would be up to speed on it. But the local people didn't want to do that because they figured we'll just get lost in this. I think they get lost in an April election because nobody knows it's there.
Well, especially when you don't have as many things on the ballot as far as positions and as much contention. And secondly, I've talked with a lot of people with the city of Lake Ozark and Camden County and even in Miller and Morgan counties, and a lot of people are attributing this to overall political fatigue.
Yeah, and I think there's something to that.
You can't turn on the TV, Facebook, or any of it, regardless of how you feel, and not see something political. And so an election like this here locally, albeit incredibly important, in talking with someone close to the city of Lake Ozark, they said this is the lowest absentee voting they have had for a general municipal election in almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm not seeing a lot of campaigning, and you're not seeing, like I mentioned, you're not seeing a ton of contention. Well, there is an exception. We'll talk about that. But you got to look at your sample ballots, which, as always, you know, if you're aware of, like we almost forgot this election was coming up, the sample ballots and what's on the ballot is very easy to find through all your local municipality, county websites, especially Morgan, Miller, and Camden County.
Yeah.
And
there's actually a lot on here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be voted for. Camden County, you've got, school district stuff. You've got Max Creek School, Richland School, Hickory County School. I don't even know where that is. Yeah. Gravois Fire Protection District stuff. Several propositions. There is a lot on here. And then you've got like City of Lynn Creek, alderman, and maybe even mayor. I'm not sure if the mayor's there, but the mayor of Camdenton and the alderman there. There's some big elections here that nobody knows about, heard about, because it's in the early freaking April.
Yeah, tons of propositions.
Yeah.
Tons of levies or tax increases for fire protection, road and bridge, and I don't even know how to decipher those and tell you whether or not we would recommend you vote that way. But the one contentious race, or a little bit heated race, would be for Camdenton mayor, the incumbent John McNabb, and the challenger Daniel Owsley. Now, Mr. Owsley, he is an alderman running for mayor, and he's got a pretty aggressive campaign, but shared some things over the last couple of weeks about a clean race. He wanted to run a clean race, and it hasn't been that way. It looks like there's been some mudslinging between the incumbent John McNabb and the challenger Daniel Owsley. Now, this will be an interesting race because, typically you don't hear a lot about the city of Camdenton. You almost forget the city of Camdenton has local police, has alderman, has a mayor, has a city administrator, but because you have the county, right? Camden County. Well, this is a big one. We don't hear a lot about the city of Camdenton, but there are some crazy accusations and things coming out against the incumbent John McNabb, some feedback all over the place. And so this will be interesting to follow. And so you have that mayoral race. And I don't even know if people know, as we jump across to Lake Ozark, that's Miller County, Camden County, but mostly Miller County, that the incumbent, who's not running again, Dennis Newberry, he's getting ready to wrap up his 4 years as mayor, 2 terms.
I didn't realize he wasn't running.
Correct. A lot of people didn't realize. And you have 2 aldermen that are running to take his spot, David Ridgely and Johnny Francescos. And if those names sound familiar, like I said, both currently Lake Ozark aldermen. And Johnny Francescos was the mayor forever before Jerry Morowski. And then you had Mayor Newberry. And so it'll be interesting, when Newberry ran the second time, Francescos ran against him 2 years ago.
That's right. I do remember that. Yeah.
And he got some decent amount of votes, I think, with name recognition. But I want to remind people, however you feel, and I think Johnny's a good guy. I think he loves public service. But he was mayor for like 6 to 8 years, maybe even longer. And what's gotten accomplished in the city of Lake Ozark these last 4 years under Mayor Dennis Newberry is hard to argue. And so it might be worth just thinking, do you go back to where it was, or do you keep the progress, the forward mindset? And me personally, You see the name David Ridgely on there.
Yeah.
I see his signs everywhere. He's one of the most level-headed individuals as far as
Now he's the popcorn guy, right?
he is the popcorn and chocolate guy.
Right.
He's been an alderman, but what I love about Alderman Ridgely, David Ridgely, is he's really a voice of reason for many things over the last couple of years with the city. He's always been somebody that'll allow you to ask questions, but then give you kind of both sides in the way that from their point of view or their position sitting with the city, how they would look at that and come to that decision. And a lot of times that's in a bipartisan way where, he's able to hear from both sides and move forward. And so I really like David Ridgely. I see he's running. Of course, we can't vote in the city of Lake Ozark, but you see some aldermen, you see the school districts, and you look at, the city of Lake Ozark has a lot of Carol Denicky. She is being challenged by Drake Schmidt. Krista Watts being challenged by David Gregg. Sherry Jackson's being challenged by Dave Miller. And of course, like I said, Mayor Newberry's not rerunning. So the city of Lake Ozark, their, elected officials, their city government could look much different following Tuesday's election.
Right. And the thing with these small towns is it doesn't take many votes to swing the winner and the loser. In the last few years, the winning, candidate for mayor has around 200 votes. So if you get a clump of people to come out and vote for you, there's a good chance you're going to win these things. But there's a lot of other things, like on the Miller County ballot, you've got Eldon School District stuff, Rocky Mount Fire Protection District, St. Elizabeth School, Cole County School. There's a lot on there that, again, just kind of flies under the radar nobody knows about.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it seems like now, locally here at Lake of the Ozarks, the community has their finger on the pulse. They're passionate, they're engaged, or maybe just opinionated, but it hasn't really translated to an increased voter turnout, and that's really where you make the difference, right? And so what collectively here locally do our counties, do our city municipalities, do our chambers, do whatever to increase the voter turnout? Because this is wild that we are just days away from this election, and so many people have no idea that these positions are on the ballot, that these positions are being challenged. And like I said, a lot of those tax increases and levies and bond issues, there's a lot on there that are going to be decided on by just a few hundreds of people.
Yeah. And it comes down to this. There are so many votes that are cast in the small towns, small counties and stuff like that, that they start putting up these taxes that nothing about, and their little group gets together and says, we're all going to vote for this so we can get this. All of a sudden you're paying more taxes that you're going, well, where did that come from, right? So you got to kind of stay up on it. And I contacted, after you reminded me last night that we had these elections coming up, I contacted a local official saying, hey, can you give me some insights into this? Who's good, who's bad, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we've been so busy, I haven't even had a chance to look yet. So even like some of the top, people in government, I still haven't had time to look at some of this stuff. So I would suggest trying to, get together with people that know, try to get some insight, and then vote. It's so important to vote.
And a lot of these, I know there's going to be some of these candidates leading into the election Tuesday that are door knocking. It is worth noting that for City of Lake Ozark, Mayor Dennis Newberry, he did attend David Ridgely's meet and greet last week, endorsing him. You saw a lot of the elected officials there, in support of David Ridgely for that Lake Ozark mayoral race. And so I thought that was worth noting, that with as much has been accomplished in the last 4 years, from the sewer, you look at the repavement of the Bagnell Dam Strip that's been a long time coming. You look at some of the infrastructure and development that's coming into the city of Lake Ozark. And so, it's been a really good trajectory the last 4 or 5 years for the city of Lake Ozark.
Mayor Newberry, too, he was a write-in, right? He was like a last-minute, okay, I better run, or this is not going to go well.
14 days before the election.
Yeah, and he did a pretty good job.
I did not always agree with everything with Mayor Dennis Newberry, but I said to him at this meet and greet that I attended, I said it'd be hard to argue that the city is not in a better place now than it was when you got elected. And I did applaud him as far as the way he got elected was unprecedented. To throw your name in the cap, 2 weeks before the election.
Yeah.
You have an incumbent who That was Jerry Moralski at the time, and there had been some allegations and reports and questions
A lot
about
of weird stuff.
integrity, and so Mayor Newberry said, we can't have that, I'll do it, threw his name in. Not only did he win, he won pretty handedly, and then ran again 2 years later. And so his 4 years, like I said, been the city's in a better place now. And if he's endorsing, David Ridgely, that should tell you something.
Well, and David Ridgely's a big fan of Lake TV. That should say something too, man. He's got to be smart, right?